Hello and welcome to AI Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined for change by Mr. Guy Drinkel. How are you, sir?
The sun is shining, probably not shining as much as Carl because he's on holiday again, obviously,
Of course.
of course. But yeah, the sun's shining. Seems like summer's starting. I say that it'll probably rain now, but it's a nice day. Uh, we get to talk about Arsenal, which is always funny, and that just adds on to it. It's a nice day, and we get to laugh a bit.
We do, and we have spent multiple days now laughing at Arsenal. I have a tweet about Arsenal that has now reached 62,000 likes and 3,800 retweets, which is nice. Um, and everybody just seems to be having a good old time laughing at Arsenal and the excuses and the histrionics and the lies from Mikel Arteta, who claimed after they lost to PSG that the PSG bench had told them that Arsenal had been by far the better team, which was then laughed at and denied by Luis Enrique in what is one of the best press conference clips I've seen in quite a while. So yeah, it's another season of failure for Arsenal. Out of Europe, out of all the cups, and 15 points behind your beloved Premier League champion, Liverpool FC.
I mean, whilst we're on Arteta there, Dave, we'll obviously probably mention him in terms of his long-term future and stuff when we get to the game. Like, I know Jose Mourinho used to be unlikable, especially in his second period at Chelsea, because he just became a bit bitter. Is there a more unlikable manager doing the rounds at the minute than Arteta? Like, there's something about Conte I like. I can see why people would hate Diego Simeone, for example. Nobody really hates Carlo Ancelotti, but there's like an arrogance about Arteta that he's just not deserved, or earned is probably a better word, in any, like, even in his playing career, he didn't deserve this sort of ego. It's just very weird.
It is very weird, and you can only assume it's that spell he spent at City and working with Pep that's rubbed off on him. But
Mm.
I mean, Pep has the right to carry himself in a certain way. City have a right to carry themselves in a certain way because they win. Like Pep wins. Whatever you think about him and whatever you might say about, he's always had all of the decks stacked in his favor. 3 league titles with Barcelona and 2 European Cups. 3 league titles with Bayern Munich. And now 6 league titles and a European Cup with City, plus all the domestic cups you could possibly count. He's been there, he's done it, and he's won it. You mentioned Simeone. Now, he was a much better player, it's worth pointing out, than Mikel Arteta. Won a league title with Atleti, won a league title with Lazio, won multiple Copa Americas with Argentina, had won a UEFA Cup with Inter. And as a manager, he won 2 league titles in Argentina. He's
Mm.
won 2 league titles in Spain, despite being a massive underdog. And he's won 2 Europa leagues as well as a couple of domestic cups. So he's been and won it. You mentioned Conte. Conte wins. Conte's about to win another league title this season. That's going to be number 6 with 4 different clubs in 2 different leagues. These managers, they win things. So yeah, you look at some of them, like Conte, like Simeone, like Pep, like Jose, who you mentioned. And I mean, Jose's run from 2002 to 2013 is maybe the greatest managerial run of all time. He wins back-to-back league titles with Porto. He wins the UEFA Cup and the European Cup. Goes to Chelsea, wins 2 league titles, 3 domestic cups. Goes to Inter, 2 league titles, domestic cup, Champions League. Goes to Real Madrid and wins the Copa del Rey and then La Liga. It's actually 2002 to 2012. So
Mm.
it's a 10-year run. That is unbelievable what he's just accomplished in that 10-year run. That is 8 league titles in 10 years. And let's not forget, he sat out for a year. There was a season where he wasn't managing because he got sacked early in the season and he sat at home.
Mm.
Like, they had a right to be arrogant. Mourinho, when he came to Chelsea, had a right to be arrogant. He'd won a European Cup with Porto. He was one of the few managers in history. I think it's only him I think at the time it was him and Bob Paisley had won the UEFA Cup and the European Cup in back-to-back years. And then obviously Rafa did it as well when he won the European Cup with us. But Jose came in as kind of a one of one. He knew how good he was. He knew what he'd already accomplished. And he was so refreshing to the English game. Like, we'd had Wenger, we'd had Houllier, a couple of other foreign managers, but largely it had been, British managers who, by their very nature, are just quite dour. Ferguson was quite an angry man. Wenger was the kind of the exotic foreigner, but there's nothing exciting about Arsene Wenger's personality. And Mourinho came in, he was just so different. And even if you didn't like him, you were drawn to him and you were entertained by him. Obviously, a different Jose comes back from Spain. Things have happened in Madrid that really sort of rocked his confidence and they kind of fractured his aura. But all of these managers won. And they won consistently at elite levels. Mikel Arteta has been with Arsenal now 5.5 seasons. He's won one FA Cup with Unai Emery's team. An FA Cup
against Frank Lampard.
Against Frank Lampard, exactly. And when you think about that FA Cup, you have to remember, and it's worth saying this because this has been thrown at us, this idea of a COVID Cup, right? But consider the FA Cup that year. The quarterfinals, the semi-finals, and the final all played in front of empty stadiums. No fans there for the key games of the competition. And when you look at Arsenal's run that year, so in the third round, Arsenal, where are they? Arsenal beat Leeds, who at the time were in the Championship.
Mm-hmm.
Then in the fourth round, they beat Bournemouth, who, if I'm not mistaken, got relegated that year.
Yes.
Then in the fifth round, they played Portsmouth, who were in League One. In the quarterfinals, they played Sheffield United, who I think got relegated either that year or the following year, but weren't particularly good anyway.
Mm-hmm.
They did beat City in the semi-final, but it was the City team that got blown away by us in the league and had a number of injuries by that point in the season.
Was that when they were putting Fernandinho at centre-back?
I'm almost certain they were.
Mm-hmm.
I'm almost certain they were. And then they beat Chelsea in the final.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's notable about this run is that the goal scorers in said quarterfinal, semi-final, and final, Nicola Pepe and Dani Ceballos in the quarterfinal. Nicola Pepe, Arteta ran out of the club. And Dani Ceballos they didn't bring back on the loan. Aubameyang scores both goals in the semi-final, both goals in the final. And as soon as he possibly could, Arteta forced him out of the club.
Mm-hmm.
So the squad that he wins that with in front of no fans is none of his own players he does not want. In the summer of 2020, the Mikel Arteta project really starts. That's 5 years ago. There's 750 million in transfer fees, about another 150 million in agent fees, and the better part of 100 million in payoffs to players whose contracts were terminated, like Aubameyang and Ozil and Lacazette and Socrates and Mustafi and Kolasinac and all these other players that he didn't want at the club because he didn't want senior players who would question him. And Nicola Pepe being another one. He didn't want any of them there. So they're about £1 billion in since the start of the Mikel Arteta project in the summer 2020, and they have won nothing. They've won nothing. And each time there's been pressure on them, they've fallen apart.
But I think the more concerning thing, Dave, is obviously they've come close in the league. Well, they bottled the first one especially, and then Man City, to be fair to them, just didn't lose a game in the second half of the season last year. But they still should have won the league, in my opinion. But they've not. What have they reached? Two domestic semi-finals in that time, if I remember correctly. One against us in Newcastle this season. Like, it's not like they've come close to even. Like, they've not reached an FA Cup final and lost it to us or City.
No.
Like, the losing FA Cup ties, what was it, to Was it Forest when they were in the Championship? Was it other? I'm sure they've lost to a couple Championship teams in that time.
Yeah, it's been hugely disappointing for them. Like, so this season, they obviously got to the League Cup semi-final, right? But they went out of the FA Cup to a bad United team.
10 men, Man United team.
10-man Man United team. Last season in the domestic cups, they went out in round 3 of the FA Cup and round 4 of the League Cup. Remember, Premier League clubs don't come into the FA Cup till round 3. The season before, round 4 of the FA Cup, round 3 of the League Cup. Again, Premier League teams don't come into the League Cup until round 2. Sometimes round 3, depending on whether in Europe or not. Season before, round 3 of the FA Cup, semi-final of the League Cup, lost to us. And